So Zach,
So
you brought some presents, not presents for the set.
Brought some goodies, yeah.
You did bring some goodies.
So for those of you who don't know, who haven't seen the stuff that I do outside of the podcast, so I'm a photographer, and that's kind of what I do in my free time. And so I'm lucky to kind of have a collection of old vintage camera gear. And one of those things I decided to add to the set is a old Canon film camera.
Dude, what a relic.
Yeah, this is super cool. This was actually my mom's. She gave it to me. And then also I have some old vintage lenses. I have a old vintage bulb flash, which you don't really see anymore.
No, you do not. No, you do not. It's so cool though.
Yeah.
Just looking at it as well, it's like a time leap.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so cool.
And to just kind of look at this stuff and then look at the cameras that we're filming on, it's just like a night and day difference.
Crazy, dude.
It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of slowly but surely keep adding stuff to the set, and
I'm excited, man. I've added some stuff too. I got the Mac. I just a casual iMac in the back, you know, just as a backdrop, purely that, you know, because things that people just have lying around, right?
Right.
iMacs. But yeah, it's really cool to start seeing how the set has evolved, and it obviously all we're doing so far is just adding things, you know, just onto, you know, the table and stuff. But soon we might, you know, like start mounting things to walls and, you know, tacking things on it. So it's really cool to see how everything is going to turn out, for sure.
Yeah, my hair's doing something crazy.
It's
right
all
now.
good. So you intro the. Oh no, I intro. Wait, who introed the last? No, you introed the last one.
Did I?
I think so, because I did
No,
the first
it was...
one. No, I did the first one and you introed the second one.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Hi, guys. Like, it's 2 minutes into it. Hello, guys. Welcome back to Uneducation Station. This is episode 3. Thank you for sticking with us. This is going to be the first one that is on the Uneducation Station channel. Exclusively. Yeah. I decided to put the episode... I only said episode 1 was going to be on my channel, but I decided because episode 2 was also like a really good... Like, it was an origin story, kind of like a... pull you in type of thing, you know. I felt like it was 2 really good influence episodes to get people hooked and to hopefully stick around and subscribe to the second channel for the Uneducation Station and see more. And I'm really pumped to start saying that we're going to start talking about anime finally. I mean, we kind of did a little bit, but before it was just kind of like us. It's just been music. Literally, that's it. Just music theory. And everybody's like, I'm sorry. Listen, I'm sorry. We'll stop talking about music that much. We're still going to, though. It's part of our blood to talk about music.
Yeah, and it's really cool because you're able to kind of implement your musical knowledge into movies and TV and anime and all of that kind of stuff. And so it just makes it really fun when you're able to just like put in music theory stuff and like put in your own musical
but
knowledge.
I get it. You know, I get it. I was editing I was editing it down and I was like, okay, we're talking way too much, and I'm like, oh god. So I apologize, but I mean, that was origin story stuff, and a lot of our origin story stuff had to do with music. It's very heavily, you know, heavily music, so it had to happen. But hey, you know what? Let's go back to the original roots and the idea of the podcast. Let's start talking about anime.
Yes.
So I got Zach into anime very recently. Well, I guess it's been a while now at this point. Like,
yeah, it's been
like a good handful of months.
Yeah, a couple months. For
sure.
sure.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, y'all. I mean, I'm sure if you haven't figured out already, I'm pretty passionate about anime. You know, that's something that's runs really deeply rooted into everything that I do, and you know, that's for reasons that we'll explain and talk about. But I recently got my boy Zach, my best friend Zach, to finally stop thinking of it as some weeb weird shit.
Hey, okay. In my defense, I never thought it was weeb weird shit.
No, you did.
Okay,
everybody does.
No, that's not
Maybe
true.
not to the extent of hate and disrespect, but you definitely thought it was kind of weird. To some extent.
To some extent, maybe. But I will say that I've always been open-minded to try to find a show that I'd be interested in. And then you just found 3 bangers.
Yes,
and
so, you know, the flowchart, as I say all the time, the Excel sheet, the Google Doc, whatever you want to call it, the Microsoft Word, the PowerPoint of me getting people into anime. It never fails. And this is a prime example. So it's crazy because, like, It's funny because the main point of this podcast, at least originally, of course, was that I know a lot. Not, of course, I'm not like a vet. I wouldn't call myself a vet of anime. Those guys are freaking awesome. But I know a lot more anime than probably someone just starting, right? And you're someone just starting. So the whole
Right.
idea was that someone who knows a lot, someone who doesn't know a lot, and then what kind of conversations we'd have.
Yeah.
That's kind of been the whole premise of this. So now that we're going to finally start talking about it, I got Zach into a bunch of different animes, or at least, well, 3 so far.
Three
And
so far.
if you guys are not unfamiliar with the flow chart, the first one is Erased.
Oh. Oh my gosh, dude.
So
And-
Erased, oh man, dude, so good, so good. So you want to tell them what Erased is about?
Okay, yeah. So it's kind of funny because every time we started talking about anime in the first 2 episodes, we're like, we'll get to it later. We'll get to it later.
And now this is later, Zach.
This is later.
it.
Okay, so basically, Erased is about a man named Satoru who has a special ability that he calls a revival, where he will go back in time, whether it's probably like less than 5 minutes, and nothing changes, but he basically has to figure out what's wrong and try to prevent something bad from happening. And in the first episode, he basically stops a bus from running over a kid because the guy was passed out in the car. Whatever. Not whatever, but
Not whatever. Just he's just sleeping. No, but
Yeah.
no, dude, I'm so impressed. You actually remember all that? No way. I was ready. I had the MLA or the MAL, the synopsis and stuff pulled up. But you hit his name. You said revival. Well, that was nuts. See,
Yeah.
this is what I'm talking about, bro. This is why I'm happy that I got Zach into it, because he gets the finer details. He didn't just.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been like almost 4 or 5 months since we watched this.
Yeah.
And you still remember. That's great. See, I got a good one in, boys. Like, I reeled in a good one.
There's more. I'll finish.
There's more.
Wait. So basically, Satoru goes through his day-to-day life having revivals just randomly throughout his days. And then, can I talk about the first episode? Because it's the first episode.
I think it's fine to talk about. It's in the synopsis, so it's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you go ahead. Go ahead.
So basically, Satoru's mom gets murdered, and to be able to solve his mom's murder, he has to go back 18 years in a revival. And so basically, it's so cool.
It's so cool because the way the revival works, you said like 5 minutes, but it's not really. It does not always be 5 minutes. It could be like 30 seconds or whatever. What
Right.
it does is it goes back into the precise moment of which he has to stop it. Right. So the exact moment of which this is how much time you have that you need in order to fix the issue. So usually it's like 5 minutes or so, or a minute, or 30 seconds, or whatever he explained. But this time it ended up being like 18 years. Yeah, 18 years in the past. So he's a kid now. In
Right.
1988, I believe. I could be wrong. Let me make sure. Doesn't say. We'll say 1988 because it's just a number I threw up. But yeah, it's
Let's see.
Well,
when
he's
did the
like
show come out?
29, right? So-
29, yeah.
yeah, about 1980-ish, right? Or 90, something like that. But you guys get what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's super cool, and the concept, I really love this concept because time travel is not anything new. You know,
Right.
it's a concept used in television, even in the West here all the time, or in movies especially as well. But it's really cool. Like the idea of what they do for it is cool. Like it's not just some cliche. I mean, it's a little cliche in a way, but it's very different than what you would expect from time travel to be used in a
Right.
cinematic aspect.
And another thing that I really like about this show that you don't really see in a lot of movies and TV is, people who have those types of special abilities don't really act like normal people, where they're just kind of like having normal people reactions to like going back 18
Yeah,
years.
they're like, oh, I guess I'm back 18 years. Let's see what I'll fuck around and stay a little bit. You know?
Let's
No.
fuck around and find out.
Fuck around and see what happens.
Yeah.
No, like
he literally at the end of the first episode, this is like my favorite shot, and I've talked to you about it like all the time, where Satoru's running.
Oh yeah, the first person shot.
Yeah, the first person shot where he first has the revival and he's running and he's trying to figure out where he's at. And then, he ends up seeing one of his old classmates and he's like, oh, I think I recognize that person. And then he shows up to the school and then the perspective flips around where it's him as a child. And then just the look of shock on his face is just so, it's so good because like you would have that same exact reaction.
You really would. Yeah, it's not like like I said, go back 18 years. Oh, all right, I guess I'm back 18. No, you'd be like, what? And you're freaking out. You don't know what to do. You don't even have a first step. You don't know what's the first thing to do.
Right.
You have to assess the situation.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a massive culture shock.
Right.
Or not
exactly.
culture shock, sorry, but you know what I mean? Like just a psyche shock. And it's crazy. It's so, I mean, as realistic as time travel is, but it's very human. It's very human reaction-y. And that's really why I enjoy Erase and how they decided to do time travel.
Yeah, and another really cool thing too is that they emphasize the fact that he had no idea what the hell was going on during that period of time in his life, and I think that that's super awesome.
Yeah, because this is 18 years ago. I don't remember what happened 18 years ago. I'd be 3. But you know what I mean. I don't remember like the vivid, like or not even vivid. I don't remember anything at all from like detail wise from like my past. I might remember a couple splashes, but like the finer details, nobody would remember that. It's not like I would go back 10 years or so and be like, oh yeah, cool, yeah, I sit in this chair or whatever, and what you don't remember that.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when you're 29 years old and then you're back to being an 11-year-old, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, like, exactly. He doesn't remember. He barely remembers anything. He barely even remembered his friends.
Right? Because they look so different from the time that he saw them last to like the way that he's seeing them now.
Yeah.
And it's like going back and seeing pictures from 10, 11 years ago of us, and it's just like, holy shit,
what the heck? I don't even remember myself looking like that.
My hair is doing something weird.
It's okay,
it's just
Zach.
getting into my face.
This is why I got a haircut. That's why you got a haircut, actually.
Yeah. Well, it was for a different reason.
It was for a different. But yeah. It's really cool, like the murder mystery aspect of it, because it is a murder mystery. He's trying to solve a child abductions, basically, because there's a serial killer, and there was a child abduction that happened in that time frame when in 19 or so, when he was 18 years ago, right? And that's the root of what's going to solve his mother being murdered in the very, like, in present time. He has to go all the way that far, and basically her mother dying is tied to the serial killings, right? So he has to solve the serial killings, and he's a kid, right?
Yeah, and nobody's listening to him.
Nobody's listening because he knows what. Well, he doesn't know the killer yet, of course, but he's trying to say like there's abductions happening and all this and that, but he's a kid, and it's not just that he's a kid, but it's also that. Well, it is that he's a kid, but he's not an adult. He doesn't have that sway, that persuasion, and he can be like, oh, he's just playing pretend,
Yeah, exactly, and that's, that in and of itself is kind of like a internal dialogue that you can get people to have, because like, I don't know how far I want to go into this, but like, when you talk to kids who have dealt with abductions and those types of things, or like they're being abused in one fashion or another, the adults don't listen to them, which is really upsetting. And obviously that's not the case for every instance, but like you think about it, and this show has so many layers to it, and it's just such a cool.
It does, yeah.
It really makes you have like a introspective view on like the way that you live your life, or the way that the world works.
Yeah, because it's not just like it is just the murders, but it's not just that. It's also like what Akayo, who's the girl that's of the first abduction. So he's the first girl that he's trying to save, because there's a serial abduction. So there's multiple girls within that time period that's being abducted. Kayo is one of them, and she's the first one. And like it's you think like, oh, okay, he's just gonna save this kid or whatever, but there's more to it. She's being abused at home and all this sort of stuff, and it's like, it's crazy because it's very brutal. Like it shows. It doesn't. Well, it does show her getting abused just to an extent, of course. But it's, even though it's like maybe like a black silhouette or something, so you don't really see like the actual raw violence. It's still violence, and it's still very brutal to watch and animated, and that's what's happening. That's what's happening to some kids. We won't go too deep into that, but yeah, that is what's happening. So it's a lot more than just some glamorous, oh, I'm a superhero gonna save the day. You know what I mean? There's way more to it, and it's very deep.
And yeah, and honestly, the dark undertones that Erased has really just makes it feel like it's more real. Like this could actually potentially happen in reality.
Yes.
Because in a lot of shows that you see where there's this person who can time travel and has superpowers.
Yeah.
You know, it's like everything is sunshine and rainbows and they're just trying to beat the bad guys. Whereas in Erased, you know, you're dealing with so many.
Yeah, it's a real life murdering.
Yeah.
Like of real people. There's
real
no
people,
magic or anything like
exactly.
that.
And it's just a guy who happens to be able to put himself in a situation where he can prevent it. And
Yeah,
that's
not
the
just
only thing.
not just that, but he's a kid too.
Right.
He has those limitations of a kid. He doesn't have the persuasion. He doesn't have like literally the physical strength. He has the mental strength because he's a 29-year-old and a kid, right? But to be put in that situation, just out of nowhere. I mean, he had this revival thing, but you know, you can just easily, like in the first episode, right? The bus, or I think it was a truck or whatever it was coming to tunnel that kid, and he had to stop it. What if he just didn't stop it? What if he because he got hurt in the process? You know, he almost died. He got hospitalized. You know, and he saved that kid, but you don't see that in the shows that we grew up in, or the shows that we grew up watching, like Power Rangers and stuff like that. You know, like
right.
They get the Power Rangers, they fight the comically dressed monsters and they swing their sword at it and there's sparks flying. There's no sparks, Zach. There's blood and there's death.
Right.
You know, and that's what happens there. So what if he revivaled in that scenario with the bus and the kid, and he's just like, I can't do this. I'm just gonna keep driving. You know,
he wouldn't be held accountable because there's
no evidence. He's just another bystander.
Yeah. There's no way.
So there would be no way to be tied to that. There's no way for him to be tied to that death because he's just like any other car on the road.
Right, but think about the way that he feels about not being able to prevent that stuff, and thinking about, like, you know, imagine if he wasn't able to prevent his mom's murder, which he wasn't initially. Like, he wasn't able to figure out a way to make it not happen without going back.
Right.
Yeah,
Initially.
without going back 18 years and going through.
Yeah, but he's just a mundane dude. You know, a 29-year-old in a pizza shop. You know,
living in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, exactly. And he's not significant in any way. No offense, bro, but he's not. You know, he doesn't have this magical superpower or anything. He's not super talented. He's just a normal dude. You know, and to be a normal dude, a mundane dude who has a normal life, wakes up and goes to a part-time job and then goes home to a one-bedroom apartment, to have this ability, like, that's such a mental, like, hit. Because, like, are you obligated to use it? Like,
right.
did somebody say did some goddess just hit him up in a dream and say, I bestow this upon you, you have to use it for the greater good? Nobody said that. He's just able to do it.
Right.
So he could easily just go off. But if that kid got flattened by that truck, he'd have to deal with that. Even though if he wasn't, at that point, he is not connected to that at all. He could walk away. There's no charges or anything. He's nothing. Nothing is against him for that. He's just another car on the road. But the mental trauma that you said, and the gut-wrenching, I could have saved that kid. But why? There's no one, but nobody told me to save that kid. But I could have saved that kid. But I don't know that kid. I don't know that truck driver. Right. I don't know the people on the street. I don't know anybody. I have no connection to them. But I have this ability, and I could have stopped it. I could have, but I didn't. You know. But why me? You know. I just work at a pizza shop. Why me? Why did it have to be me? You know. You're not the glamorous superhero thing that we all grew up to watch. It's not really that glamorous. I mean, you would think that, like, the superheroes now. What would we call the superheroes now? Probably, if I had to put it in a literal sense, probably like the people fighting the wars. Right? Yeah. Army, the U.S. Army. For us, being the United States citizens, the U.S. Army would be our heroes, you know, fighting in the front lines so that we can sit here and do a podcast, so that we can sit here and have cameras looking at us, mics looking at us, so we can live life without having to worry about that type of stuff. About, you know, they're sitting there risking their lives. Right. And you see the PTSD that they get, and the traumas and the anxieties that they get because they're seeing bloodshed happen. They're killing people. Their friends are dying. They're witnessing this thing firsthand. And they're being called heroes. Right. I mean, they are heroes, but is that what it means to be a hero? You know?
Right. And you sit down and you think about, you know, when they get home and they have to act like a normal human being again. And I can't imagine having to deal with the sheer amount of trauma and seeing the things that those types of people see on a day-to-day basis. And that's like, that's the same thing with police officers, firefighters, EMTs, doctors,
Yeah.
all of those people who see the real brutality in the world. And we're talking like in the real world, and you just sit here and wonder how they're able to live day-to-day lives. And like, that's never addressed when you talk about anybody who is in like a comic book, in like a Marvel movie.
No, I mean,
like,
it might be a little bit. Maybe in like DC, I know DC is a little more gruesome. I mean, I'm not too into the Marvel versus DC type stuff, but it's not really. It is a little bit, but not really. You know, it's at least it's not it's not close to reality because there's superpowers and stuff, right? There's no superpowers, Zach. There's guns and blades and death. Yeah, exactly. Yes, death. No, but seriously, it's to be bestowed upon that. I mean, remember, I guess you're not on Twitter, but I think you know about it, like the World War III memes that were happening.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was. I think it was like some Donald Trump. Of course, it's some Donald Trump stuff, right? But it's like, you might just be randomly enlisted to go into World War III or whatever.
Right.
Would you be, if they knocked on your door and they said, "Pack your bags, son. You're being enlisted. You're being enlisted. You're gonna fight in the war."
Right, you're being drafted.
You're being drafted. Would you be able to do that?
Fucking
as a normal person? No. It's like asking me. You're giving me a gun and you're saying, "Shoot this person right next to you," even if he's like a terrible person, a bank robber, child molester, a rapist. They're the same things. Murderers.
Right.
I don't know if I can still pull the trigger, Zach. I really don't. I mean, I'll sock him in the face like, "Man, fuck you," but I don't know if I can kill him, Zach, because that's a life.
Right.
That's a life. And even if he means all bad, I don't know if I can do that. That's such a massive trauma. And to be, that's not as glamorous as the Red Power Rangers who are fighting evil. Go back to your planet. Even if it's an alien from another planet, that's a life.
Right.
He goes home and there's a family.
Right.
It's I'm not talking like, I mean, I don't know if I can say this and I still eat meat and stuff like, "Oh, that cow had a family," but you know what I mean, Zach, right? It's really tough. And I can't do that, I really can't. I couldn't just sit there and I couldn't shoot a man even if he was like the worst person in the world.
Right. And when you talk about those people who have killed other people or died for other people, they are if they end up having to the only thing that I can picture,
it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
The only thing I can picture is just watching the life drain from somebody's eyes, and like, even if that's the worst person in the world, I don't know if I'd ever be able to stomach that.
Yeah, I know. And even if it is the worst person in the world, the people in the front lines are saying it to their comrades, their friends, their companions,
Right.
It's tough. And let's imagine it's like our rated R Power Rangers, but it's not, because it's bloodshed and it's death.
It's basically Saw.
It's Saw, but not. No, it's just Saw. Man, it's just Saw. It's a horror film,
right?
And it's reality, and we don't experience that, so we will never know unless we do. But I don't know if I'd ever want to.
The thing that is the hardest for me is knowing that people in my family have seen stuff like that. Like, my dad used to be a forensic investigator in Las Vegas. He used to be a highway patrolman. He used to be a police officer. He's retired now, but he has seen so many things. And like, my oldest brother is a cop in Las Vegas. My other brother is an EMT. They've seen such traumatic things, and that's just in their day-to-day life. And so, when you talk to people who have been through those types of things, and you wonder how they become so calloused, and how they become so detached from reality in that way, it makes sense. Because if you were seeing dead bodies on the side of the road from a car crash, every time you clock into work, like, you can understand how that would have such a horrible mental toll on you. And when you actually start to begin to see that being represented in other forms of media, like seeing that in even in like TV shows or anime or whatever it may be, you know, you really start to see the brutality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, if you get attached to a character in an anime and you see like they die or they witness someone die, you feel that.
Yeah.
But in not to break everything that I've ever built of me praising anime, it's still just a story, and it's a drawing, and it's a cartoon. That's not reality.
Right.
So when you see that death, you know, you feel that emotion, you feel shit, and you might cry or you might feel down for the day. But they see that in real life.
Right.
And I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if some magical fairy can come down and say, Arthur, Anuki, I bestow upon you this power of revival. At any given moment, before a tragedy happens, you have the ability to stop it before it happens. I don't know if I can do that, Zach. I don't know if I can claim that title as a hero just to do that. I don't. Right. It's a massive mental toll.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I feel like people don't really understand, and it is greatly diminished in media. Any form of media, no matter what it is, they diminish how hard it would be to be in that situation.
Well, that's because they don't want to show that in media. They
Right.
can't. They want everything to be sunshine and lollipops and stuff. I mean, they'll show some stuff every now and then where like breaking news, X person died, Y person died, X, you know, this crime happened or whatever. But that's not the reality of it. I mean, we just see that happen on the TV and we're like, oh, they died. That sucks. And then we continue watching whatever. We continue watching the broadcast. But that person died. Their family feels, you know,
right.
I don't know if I can. I couldn't, Zach. I really couldn't. I could not. I respect every single person of that field. Like policemen, y'all can feel whatever you want to feel about policemen, but in general, for their purpose, I feel for them. For doctors, for army men, or the entire military, army, navy, all that. You know, I feel for them. I really do. But I would, even if I say that, I can never reach the sympathy that is high enough to match the sympathy that they need, because they deal with just brutal things.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just really, really, it's a harder thing to talk about too, because you can never really fully understand until you're there. Yeah. Anyway, so let's segue into something a little bit more positive.
Yeah, let's move away from that.
Yeah.
That was good though. That was good.
Yeah, it's really crazy when shows are able to make you think these complex thoughts and make you feel very complex emotions.
See, they say it's a cartoon, Zach. It's not just a cartoon.
I know, and
we just talk about 30 minutes about, because of a cartoon. We talked about 30 minutes about just gruesomeness, you know. But it's crazy. But let's move past it. It's a great show. Please watch it. But
yeah,
I think.
See, we talked about a lot of stuff, like the themes in the show, but we didn't really like talk about the show a lot. But that's also I think that's a good thing too, because for the people who haven't seen it yet, they can get kind of the just a little taste.
Just why we're so passionate about it.
Yeah.
Like you see, wow, these guys care way too much about this cartoon. Maybe we should watch it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, this is coming from two guys who just get a hardcore storytelling boner.
I know,
so,
dude. Storytelling is just so great, man. Okay, listen, speaking of storytelling and that stuff, let's move. Okay, so we're going to move a little bit into spoiler talk. Just a little bit. So if you haven't watched it, then again, like I've said, the shows that I've had you watch, most people have already watched, basically.
Right.
Usually, typically, right?
Typically.
You know, it's not like the most underground stuff in the world, but it's also not the most mainstream. So 9 out of 10, maybe 8 out of 10 times, they probably have watched the show. But if you not, go ahead and watch it, because we're going to talk a little bit into spoilers. So skip ahead if you like to. So let's talk about our favorite scenes.
Ooh.
Our favorite scenes. Oh, before we talk about our favorite scenes, I just want to give a shout out to Best Mom.
Best Mom.
Oh
my God.
Listen, Satoru's mom. Hold on, let's drop a name because she deserves it. Fujinuma Sachiko. His mom is best mom in all cinematic history, Zach.
Okay. So
I don't care. Not TV, not anime. Cinematic history, Zach. Everything that exists of moms, bro. She's the best mom. She's so great.
And then we're gonna go into Your Lie in April and go into Worst Mom.
Hey man, listen. Okay, I have a lot to say about that, but okay, listen. Let's talk about
Okay,
best mom. The reason why she's best mom and this is also more. Well, yes, no. I'm just gonna say the spoiler warning right away. I mean, I already did, so this is still gonna proceed into it. But the I've watched this many times. I've watched
Right.
Erased many times, and just that's the getting other people into it, getting people like my IRLs getting into it. I watched it with them. I watched it with you.
Right.
I've watched it many times, but the more I watch it, the more I have an appreciation for her and what she does, because she
Right.
plays such a pivotal role. And like like we were talking about, these are just a bunch of group of kids trying to solve something that might not even happen, because Satoru knows it's happening, but the kids don't. They think they're just playing pretend, right? Playing detective. That's what the whole thing is, right?
Yeah.
They're playing detective, and what if Kaio gets abducted, and they're playing this. And I mean, his friend, I need to drop his name, because Kenya, bro, shout out to Kenya, bro.
Kenya.
If you were a real man, bro, shout out to you, bro. Homie.
Real homie.
Dude. But yeah, like, they were just playing pretend, and they were just a bunch of kids, and that's kind of just the role the kind of game they were playing. But Sachiko, or his mom, played this pivotal role in supporting them indirectly, and doing,
Right.
like when Satoru abducted Kato, air quotes abducted Kato, so that Kaio, sorry, not Kato, Kaio, so that she wouldn't be abducted first, so he hid
Right.
her in in a bus or whatever, and then after days went by, they were saying, oh, Kaio got abducted or whatever and whatnot, but he knew what was happening, right? And it's thought like, okay, maybe the adults don't know what's happening either, but his mom knew. His mom knew his son
His
was up
mom
to
knew.
something,
Yeah.
and like it's such a good scene where, oh god, it's so great. But
Wait. I have one more thing to add.
yes, add, go ahead.
Okay, so I think the greatest feeling is that realization of why he went back as far as he did, because Satoru's mom was behind the scenes trying to figure out and investigate.
Yeah, she was a key part of the investigation, so
Right.
She was needed to be needed for the investigation.
Right, yeah, exactly. And so for Satoru to be able to save his mom, he would have to save Kaio and the two other people who were going to get abducted, and he had to figure out who was abducting these people,
Yeah.
and he had to basically solve the mystery to save his mom, because his mom had a target on her head.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just really, really fascinating when all of the pieces started to fit together super nicely.
It's
and it
so
was just
great.
like,
Listen, okay, so my favorite scene
favorite scene.
of the anime. Oh man, every time I see it, I get teary. I don't care how many times I see it. But after witnessing all those episodes of Kaio, living that harsh life in reality and all that type of stuff, that scene where they finally go back to his house, and best mom being best mom, like, good shit, Satoru, hell yeah, but Satoru brings Kaio back home, into his home with Sachiko, his mom, and they bathe and sleep and whatever, it's good times, right, fun times. But the morning after, when she has that breakfast,
Oh my god, dude.
like, and then it's like she's looking at down, and this like eggs and rice and bacon and all that type of stuff. There's this warm breakfast, and she has flashbacks of looking like her normal breakfast, which is just like cup of noodles and a slice of bread, or just money to get it herself,
Right.
and she just starts crying, and and then Sachiko comes and hugs her, and at that point it's like Satoru, he's watching, and I think it's at that moment where he realized how fucked up her life was, Kaio's life was,
Right.
because he's witnessing it and he doesn't have anything to say. She's just bawling her eyes out. His mom is there to comfort her, and he's just like, he's at a loss for words, because he's just, and there's no dialogue, there's no monologue in them yet. It's just a drawn out scene of her crying, and it's just like the massive nail or hammer to the nail of just how crazy her life was and what she had to deal with. And now it's like things are going to be better now, and it's that
Right.
warm feeling of like, finally the tables are turning and she can start living happy now. It's
Yeah.
that first moment where it's like things are working, everything is working, and it's I'm gonna start crying just talking about that, because I remember that scene. I've seen it so many times, so it's embedded into my brain. I remember that scene just so well,
Yeah.
and it's so heartwarming.
Yeah, and the coolest part of that is that's that turning point where you realize, like, okay, this is all actually working, and this is all actually going to be able to change in a positive way, which is really awesome. And so it's just really cool to see just such complex emotions portrayed in such a beautiful way. And the animation style is absolutely gorgeous, and the way
Yes.
that they are able to portray such nuanced behavior that are so complex to try to recreate, and they do it so well. Just that moment where Kaio's just staring at that food, and she just has like this feeling of relief and pain at the same time, and you understand that complex emotion.
She never really cried up until then.
Right.
Ever since then, she's been stone-faced, She's
Right.
been concealing it, holding it in, not really talking about her feelings. She never even mentioned the fact that she got abused, I don't think. Never. Even though, like, all the kids were figuring it out, and Satoru knew, of course, she never brought it up. She kept it to herself, and it was at that moment where all that bottled emotion, trauma, and everything comes out, and she just finally lets it out, and that was just such a heartwarming scene.
Yeah. So I think that my favorite scene was a scene that you actually brought up a little while ago. It was the bus scene where Kaio, Satoru, Kenya, and who else was there?
I think it
remember.
was just them at the time,
Oh,
unless it was the guy who looked like a girl, Sugita.
Okay.
Was it the guy? Yeah, it was the guy because the guy who looked like the girl, like the kid who looked like a girl.
Yeah.
That he was in it first, or because the glasses and the fat kid wasn't into it yet.
Right. Okay. So I think it was just Satoru, Kaio, and Kenya. And they were just sitting in the hideout, and then the next, was it the hideout or was it just like a different place?
Oh, it was a bus. The secret base or whatever didn't come till the second girl.
Okay. Oh, that's right. And then the next morning, when Satoru wakes up before school to go meet up with Kaio, Satoru's mom wakes up early too.
Oh yes,
and makes him a breakfast and a lunch, but Satoru's mom knew that Kaio was
in custody of Satoru.
Yes, exactly.
In some way.
In some way, she knew that Satoru was involved, and so she decided to pack him a lunch, and then Kaio opened it up, and
Yeah, Satoru gives that lunch to Kaio.
yeah, so he gives the lunch to Kaio, and then there's a note from Satoru's mom. And it's just like,
oh yeah, and it says, "I packed all of my son's favorite." It was for her. She knew, bro. It's so best mom.
Best mom.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, the more I watch it, the more I see her character just being so pivotal and a supporting character, but also she does so much, right? Because when Satoru was abducting Kaio, he was waking up early, even earlier than his mom. So his mom's like, okay, something's going on. So she wakes up even earlier, to make breakfast for him, to make sure that he eats before he goes to school or before Kaio or whatever the heck. She's so deeply involved, and she gets it, and she knows there's something going on, and she's like, okay, I'm not gonna like bring this to the police or anything. I think we're onto something. Let's figure it out. And the more she does for her son, like, even ending spoiler talk. Okay, so when he finds out who the killer is, and then the killer drowns him as a kid, but he wakes up in a coma after like 18 years or whatever, so now he's back like 29 or something like that, or whatever it is. He's back in real time, right? But with the mind of a kid, because it's crazy, because he just, all of the future is gone, because he had that future, but but it got cut off because he didn't grow up to see it. So it's kind of very interesting. But anyway, that's not the point. The reason why he was able to live, and the doctor said so, the reason why he was able to wake up from his coma is because of his mom, because his mom tended for him for like 18 years,
right?
In the hospital, in his room, stretching his legs, shaving him, cutting his hair, making sure when he wakes up, he'll be in peak physical condition to continue bouncing back up. Dude, when I saw that for the first time, I didn't really think much of it, but the more I rewatched it, the more I realized she had to doctor her son for 18 more years in a coma. Most people in our world would just stick their son in the hospital and just pray, but she was like, or maybe even, dare I say, give up, but she didn't give up. She was like, my son's going to wake up. My son will fight this. My son will win, and I'm going to make sure when he wins, he's going to be back in peak position. So he's stretching his legs out and his arms out and making sure he looks nice and all that type of stuff. It's so crazy, and this crazy. I have so much respect for this character, and it's crazy because the more I watch it, at first I thought it was a murder mystery, but now it's more of just moms are great. Moms are awesome. Moms are great.
Yeah, it just makes me realize how awesome my mom is.
Yeah,
because my
dude.
mom's fucking awesome.
My
Hi,
mom's
Mom.
pretty fucking awesome too. All our moms are pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if you made it this far, but hi, Mom.
I know my mom's not watching. I'm just kidding. She's over there. It's all good.
Yeah, no, she gets to listen to us scream about shows from the other room. Sorry. But yeah, dude, it's just like it's very symbolic of the things that people will do for the people who they care about behind the scenes without them knowing about it. And that's the most amazing thing to see, because you never really know how much your parents are doing for you behind the scenes when you're young, especially when you're young.
And I hate that because you look back and you're like, fuck, dude, why did I take that for granted?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just so crazy, and it just there's so much like
I don't know what I can do for them,
Yeah.
Like I sat there, they raised me the way they raised me. They put food on my plate and a roof over my head, and that's not something that Kyle can be able to do, but that's why I'm even more grateful for my mom, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because there are kids with moms like that, and it's tough. So I can't take it for granted, what everything not just my mom, but my parents do, what my grandparents do, and what they've done for me growing up. So that's why, when I'm doing all of this stuff and skipping school and stuff, it's tough for me. It's a tough pill to swallow. And I don't know if I'll go through this story about my life crisis dilemma because it's still pretty fresh. But I mean, it might pop. I actually talked about it on the stream because I was feeling emotional. I was feeling myself, and I was like, oh man, I'll just drop the emotional bomb. Maybe I'll go through it in more detail when I'm not as emotional, when I'm more level-headed.
Drops the stream highlight.
Twitch TV, by the way.
Twitch.tv/Anuki.
Anuki. No. But no. It's hard because they do so much and you just don't know what to do for them. But the best, in my opinion, after figuring it out, after going through that life crisis that I did, the thing that I figured is that what they don't want isn't necessarily for you to like go to college or whatever. I mean, they'd want that, of course, but what they really want, whether that be college or not, is for you to end up leading a family and being that role model for the next generation of that family you're creating, right? Being a good person and raising your children right, and finding a good mate and all that type of stuff, because they don't want you to plummet into something dark,
Right.
They've done their best to make sure you don't do so, and they don't want to see their kids sad, They want them to live a prosperous life, and they want them to live graciously, and whether that be by going to college, or maybe that's not for them and they drop out. I mean, it's tough for a parent to hear, especially like our parents, who grew up in that age where they don't know anything more than just going to college and getting a 9-to-5. But that's another talk for another time. Yeah. As we always say, another talk for another time. That's for another podcast episode. Yeah. But no, it's really insane. Don't take your parents for granted. They do so much for you. Right. So
we could literally sit here and talk about this all day long, honestly. But
listen, respect your parents. They do a lot for you, okay?
Yeah.
They do. And a race is a really good way to tie that together.
Right. And, it's just... I wish that I could have been closer with my parents when I was younger.
We all do.
I mean, now my relationship with my parents is absolutely great. Like, the reason why I was late to get over here was because I was sitting there talking to my dad.
Yeah.
And, that's one of those moments that I didn't really want to cut short, and I knew that I was literally going to be here all day. And so...
You're staying here all day. We're making up for the recordings that you missed. No, I'm just kidding. But, no, I know what you mean, We really wish we didn't take that for granted as kids, but we don't know that, But now that we're older, I'm starting, boomer talk, hey, kids, make sure not to take your parents for granted. But because we did that, we really did that. And it just... I don't want the kids that are in now, the kids of today, to take that for granted, because they do.
Right.
And we did too. I'm not saying that, oh, you kids fucking suck, no, because we did too. And I really want to preface that they do so much behind the scenes to make sure you're able to go to school and eat, and they're busting their ass off, and they're even if they're not retired yet, they're still busting their ass off. If you haven't moved out yet, they're still busting your ass off to do all this, to be able to let you live. And I'm happy that I understand that now, but I like to think, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I figured this out pretty quickly.
Right.
Like when my grandpa passed away in 2016. Yeah, 2016. My grandpa passed away. The first death I ever experienced. That was at that moment where I looked around in the funeral home and I looked at all the elderlies and all the adults, and I was like, they did so much for me. We're all gathered together and in the morning and all that type of stuff. But it was this death that really got me to understand that they've done so much. And I mean, I've gone through it so many times, right? Like the freaking coming from Laos, and that my story is different than yours and most people, of course. But they came from Laos because of what was it? Russian? No. Oh gosh, sorry.
China?
No, not China. Oh god, no, I think it was Russian. Sorry Russians if it's not right. I'm just losing it because I've told this story so many times. It's just whatever. My bad. I'm sorry, Russians, but no, just communists, right? Just invading Laos and Thailand, the Southeast Asia, and they had to either stay there and deal with it and turn into a communist country and live in a communist country. Not to say anything about communist countries, but as someone who wasn't, they were just, my grandparents are like, this is not what we want for our future children. We don't want to live like this. So they took a risk. They could have just lived like that, but no, they took the risk. They left. They could have died. They could have got raped. They could have gotten robbed. It's crazy. It's like the Underground Railroad stories that we hear growing up of the African Americans or the slaves. The slaves. They were slaves.
Right.
Not gonna go into that talk. But you know what I mean. It was like that. Moved during the night, hide during the day. They went through prison of other countries and refugee camps and crazy stuff, and they went through all this stuff, and I don't know about that. I'm sitting here streaming every weekend, playing Call of Duty and stuff, and we're having a podcast right now, and I never have to deal with that. They dealt with that, and they don't want me to deal with any sort of darkness like that. And your parents don't want you to deal with anything like that,
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that we are fortunate to kind of have the perspective of, we are able to acknowledge the history that came before us so that we could be in the position that we're in right now. And that, I talk about my grandpa a lot. I talk about my grandparents a lot. My grandpa was in the Navy. I have a tattoo on my back of a ship that he was the captain of during like the Vietnam War, the Korean War. And he risked his life and left his family to protect the country. And that, that's just an absolutely extraordinary thing. And, I have all of the respect in the world for him. But he did that so that I don't have to.
Yeah.
And he went and put his ass on the line so that the future generation could feel safe and be able to live the lives that they live. Hence what we're doing right now. And, it's just acknowledging not only your family's history, but, the history of where we live, everything, acknowledging history is very, very, very important because it puts a lot of things into perspective of like, how bad things used to be in the past and, what a fortunate position that we're in now is. But I mean, there's always going to be trials and tribulations no matter where you live, no matter what you do, there's always going to be a struggle. But at the same time,
that struggle is minimized because of them.
Exactly. Yeah. And, my dad literally retired in November of 2020 and he is 64. He worked as a police officer until he was 64 years old, which is fucking wild.
Yeah. They are heroes.
Yeah.
They're the heroes that we can't imagine to be,
Right.
But it's kind of like up to us to be the next heroes for the next generation, right? It's for us to, when we grow up and have a family or whatever, we have to make sure that they don't have to worry about anything, right? We put
Yeah.
the food on their tables, and we, it's a it's a circle of life, whatever, fucking that shit, right? They're our heroes. They're the heroes that we just sat here and talked that we could never do. I couldn't go out to war. I really couldn't. As much as I love, wanting to have the next generation be a profitable and a happy generation, I couldn't be that direct and do that. But there are other ways to do it.
Right.
And not to discredit what they're doing. There's miles better what they're doing. What they're doing is miles better than what we could ever do, in my opinion, because they're risking their lives. But for us in this new generation, in this new life, in this new decade or whatever, or multiple decades, because 2021 now, there are things that we can do to serve the purpose of the next generation that is not necessarily the same as what they do.
Right.
So it's up to us to figure out what that is, how we can do it. And it might just be as rudimentary as just having a family, making sure they get food on the table, or it could be like making sure that, I want to be like a streamer entertainer person, so I can put some smiles on people's face, and you want to be a veterinarian, so you can work into that field and
Right.
help those people out. There's the things that we can do.
Yeah. And it's so cool because you and I kind of have the same mindset of, we want to make a positive change. And, we want to make the world even just a little bit better for the next generation.
Yeah.
And even if that's something as simple as making people laugh or making people think about certain things that they never would have thought of because this conversation was brought up because of an anime.
A drawing, by the way.
A drawing. Yeah. And, these types of conversations are super important to have because, if you just watch this show, just kind of didn't really pick up on a whole lot and just were like, oh, that was a good show, and then just kind of
that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. It was a good show, right?
It was a great show.
Yeah,
but there's so much more to it, and the more that you really take a subjective look at it, the more that you're able to understand that they were trying to illustrate very complicated real life things that are going on in the world.
Yeah.
And they did those things in a way that made it so that it was brought to your attention, and like you were just sitting there thinking, holy shit, like I can't believe that someone had to go through all of that. And that happens. It happens in the real world.
It really does. There's serial killings happening, and there's all sorts of crime that's happening, and God forbid that it happens to us. I mean, it just happened to Satu just randomly.
Right.
His mom was murdered, and suddenly he's framed for it. That just happened. That can just happen at any moment. You know. Life is crazy.
Life is crazy.
Anything can happen at the drop of a hat. You can one moment his mom could die, and the other moment he just is randomly bestowed upon by a magical thing that can stop disasters from happening. He has to obtain this mantle and become a hero.
Right.
And that just happens. I mean, who's to say that can't just happen to us now? What if magic just suddenly started happening? We don't know that. I mean, all science, points to that never fucking happening because it's reality and magic is just a vivid dream or whatever. But what if it does happen? Anything can happen, Zach. As far as I'm concerned, anything can happen.
Right.
Whether that makes sense science-wise or not. It could just happen. And if that happens, what are we going to do about it? How will we be able... If only me or you was able to obtain magic, would you use it for greater good? Would you be able to hold that mantle? That's what I want. I'm just going to leave that as an open-ended question. Would you be able to... If you... I'm talking to you now, viewers, listeners.
Yeah,
if you were just
wall.
randomly given the power of magic, or whatever it may be, to save lives, but at the expense of your own, would you say yes? That's all.
Damn.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to take a sip, but...
On that note.
But seriously, I'm just going to end it with this. Don't take life for granted. That's what I've learned from Erased. After rewatching it many, many times, after watching it with Zach one more time, don't take life for granted because it happens quick. But yeah, that's about it for this one. I think that's all we have time for now. Thank you so much for watching again. hit subscribe if you want to keep up, because the rest of the episodes are gonna be on this channel, the Uneducation Station. So make sure you subscribe. There's a coffee link in the bottom, or in the top of the description rather, or somewhere in the description. If you want to support us, maybe just to let us know, and you just leave a like or subscribe and you let us know, or comment or whatever. But there is a link if you want to donate voluntarily. Of course,
Right.
It supports us, it supports the set, and hopefully we can keep doing this for the long term.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe we might be able to make something amazing happen in the near future. But yeah,
Hopefully.
I
So,
love
yeah.
your face.
Have a peace out, y'all.
Peace.
Love yourself.
Love yourself, damn it.